put up our risk disclaimer here. So remember, by continuing to watch this video, you accept responsibility. Now, the story of the universe. We dare to imagine a time when the entire observable universe was compressed into a region of space smaller than an atom. And we can do much more than just imagine. We can compute. We can compute how hundreds of billions of galaxies emerge from a single subatomic sized patch of space, dwarfed by a mote of dust, and there is precise agreement between those computations and our observations of the cosmos. It seems that human beings can know about the origins of the universe. Cosmology is surely the most audacious branch of science. The idea that the Milky Way, our home galaxy of 400 billion stars, was once compressed into a region so vanishingly small, it is outlandish enough. The entire visible congregation of billions of galaxies once occupied such a subatomic size patch sounds like insanity. It's crazy to discover our origins and really find a combination of factors between the universe and, of course, looking towards the future in the markets and applying our knowledge in real time. Make sure that you join the Forex community online. It's over there, pointing the opposite way. Go like that. Go ahead, click that. And really, the link is in the description, so I'm just kind of saying. This is not a book about knowledge handed down from on high. More than anything, it is about how we, all of us, can gain an understanding of the universe by doing science. You might think it's impossible for the average person to explore the universe in much detail. Don't we need access to the Hubble Space Telescopes and Large Hadron Colliders? The answer is no, not always. Some questions about our Earth, our Sun, our solar system, and even the universe beyond are answerable from your back garden. How old are they? How big are they? How much do they weigh? We will answer these questions by doing science. And of course, we will observe, measure, and think. One of the great joys of science and really just living is to understand something for the first time and truly get it, to feel that shift, to have it click, and to allow yourself to experience the abundance that comes from whatever it is. So, knowing all of this is really just a process, and it's very satisfying. Seeing the facts and seeing our analysis, we can go ahead now. We have the GBP AUD on here, and of course trading on or charting with TD Ameritrade's Thinkorswim. If we look on the daily here with our US dollar yen, we can see we are approaching our orange oval target. So where could we be looking for, under the impression that we're expecting another 55 pips of downside movement at least? We can recognize that we do have a gap over here, and really it could make sense to see us start to play on the top of this whole range, because I would imagine there is significant demand in here. We're going to be approaching that 110 psychological level. We can see that we did have a double top at the 61.8 golden ratio Fibonacci here. Looking at the weekly, we have quite a significant distance of space between where we are and our EMA. Looking at about 246 pips, and of course the monthly right now, we do have a bullish pattern printing, but we are going to have to see. We have the last week of July upcoming, and what we're going to do is switch on to Forex Factory. real briefly. Just pull this up. So here on Forex Factory for the week ahead, we are seeing quite a few red folders, but not as many as there will be in the first week of August. So looking at this Tuesday, we can expect some movement in the early morning here, Eastern time frame, so during New York session. And then of course we do have some Australian interest in the evening. Now looking towards Wednesday, this is going to be a significant day. It's in the middle of the week. And of course we have the FOMC statement as well as the federal funds rate, so the interest rate for the United States dollar, expected to remain at 1.25%. So keep your eye on the movement that's setting up for what could be a midweek reversal. Thursday in the morning as well as Friday just before New York, we do have the US dollar and Canadian news happening. So if we wanted to take a look ahead just to really see and compare, we can see here that looking towards 2 weeks from now, there's a lot more news. The 1st of August, we do have the Australian dollar cash rate. Looking forward, we also do have some British pound monetary policy, looking at the AUD and of course NFP on the Friday, August 4th. There's also a Swiss franc bank holiday, and really that's all that we're going to take a look at on Forex Factory. So what else should we know? We can quickly take a look at our Renko and range charts. We can see that we are clearly in a bearish trend at the moment. There is a lot of interest right here, and you're starting to see more clearly why I drew this oval in particular. This is a 38 pip candle Renko chart. On our range, let's check her out. Still getting that bearish indication, so really don't consider this as a signal necessarily, but I could expect something like this where we, oh, I guess I just moved that. Let me go ahead and reset it. Let's duplicate it. We could see something like this where we do push a little bit lower to then have price continue higher towards the 115,500 levels. I don't feel like it's going to happen this rapidly, but it is something setting up potentially. Now, let's take a look at, I want to say the GBP USD. I want to look at the US dollar Mexican now. So we're going to just leave this on here for a moment. Hop in. Well, no, we'll leave it on our range bar chart. Read a little bit more about the universe. So, how far away are the stars and galaxies? How big is the universe? What is it made of? What was it like in the distant past? The answers to these questions will generate a cascade of new ideas, and before the book is finished, we'll be equipped to inquire about the origins of the universe. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the YouTube chat at Start Trading. I appreciate your subscription, and of course, there will be an increase in the quality and quantity of videos you see here on the channel. So if you have any questions, make sure that you leave a comment just so that I can get to your submission, because this is really, it's a rewarding process. So I appreciate you if you are still on here up until now. This is something that is inspiring me to just implement necessary changes to our charting so that things can progress in a step-by-step basis, but also maximize the value that I can offer to you, because really I am passionate about this. The charting process, the trader development, helping an individual understand about their personality, their strengths, weaknesses, analyzing your trade plan, and really just the business plan that you're putting into action for whatever activity you have in the financial markets. And really, we're also going to be following the story of how our universe evolved from simply a subatomic patch into the oceans and galaxies that we see today. So this is Universal. It is a Guide to the Cosmos by Brian Cox and Jeff Forshaw, authors of the international bestseller Why Does E Equal MC Squared? So consider the universe before the Big Bang. By Big Bang, we mean a time 13.8 billion years ago, when all the material that makes up the observable universe came into being in the form of a hot, dense plasma of elementary particles. Now, before this time, the universe was very different, you see. It was relatively cold and devoid of particles. Space itself was expanding very rapidly, which means any particles it might have contained were moving away from each other at high speeds. So the average distance between particles was doubling every 10 to the power of negative 37 seconds. And that is a staggering, almost incomprehensible rate of expansion. Two particles 1 centimeter apart at one instant were separated by 10 billion meters only 4 times 10 to the power of negative 36 seconds later. More than 20 times the distance from the Earth to the Moon. We do not know for how long the universe expanded like this, but it continued, and this is really the pre-Big Bang phase of rapid expansion. And it's also called the epoch of inflation. So when we're looking at the foreign exchange market, we can understand that we're talking about trillions of dollars being traded each and every single day between currency pairs such as the US dollar Mexican. We have the Australian dollar paired with the USD. We are bullish. We can see that our oval, the 0.8, psychologically powerful number. We can look towards last week. We had a high of 0.79884. So about 16 pips, 15.6 if I were looking to be precise, below where we were looking towards at this oval, breaking into that 0.8 level. So I see it coming. We can see that we did tap our 200 EMA. We do have some higher trading activity up here. So looking at the monthly, I mean, it would make sense for, if not in July, maybe we close July down at even the top of what I would classify an area of demand right now. We're really going to have to see. I'm not going to speculate on this one. I don't trade the AUD USD too much. GBP AUD we will look at. The GU, let's check what's going on. We're going to have to make an update. This is not day 1079 anymore, because from August 4th until today, it has been exactly 1084 days online. So this is a monthly chart. This is a 54 pip range chart. And really, I'm seeing more bearish movement happening. I am bullish, rather. My apologies. Bearish is to the downside. Bullish is to the upside. This candlestick that printed on July 20th is really a powerful confirmation for us, but we are going to take a look at the Renko, check out the true trend of what's happening with price action, and we can see we are still printing that bearish candlestick. So perhaps we could see some buys down a little bit lower. Don't focus too much on these levels or any of these price lines right now, but let's see if we can clean this up. That's good enough. You can see our Brexit candle, the algorithm flash crash, the result of Trump coming into office, a gap with the tap, Theresa May speaking, early election being called, a little bit of consolidating but creating those higher highs, and of course the higher lows. The GBP AUD. And we will do an analysis on this in just a minute, so you know. One minute after the Big Bang, at around 1 billion degrees, the universe was cool enough for some of the protons and neutrons to cluster together in pairs to form deuterium nuclei. Most of these then went on to partner with additional protons and neutrons to form helium, and in tiny amounts, lithium. This is the epoch of nucleosynthesis. For the next 100,000 years or so, little happened as the universe continued to expand and cool. Towards the end of this time, however, the dark matter gradually began to clump around the seeds sown by the ripples in the inflaton field. So it's really cool to explore our history. And really, this book, from what they're saying, is really a broad outline of the story of evolution of our universe, from before the Big Bang to Isaac Newton. It seems that collections of atoms on a cooling cinder in possession of a precious thing called science for barely an instant have found a way to glimpse the fires of creation. The rest of this book is really the story of how we did it. Humanity is such a beautiful race, and next time we will be exploring how old are things and taking a careful look at nature, and really just looking at examples like we know that river valleys are cut by flowing water and that coastlines are subject to erosion. These are features that change with time, and just like we get better and better each and every single time because we've adapted that mindset of being professional, being in alignment, and just working towards becoming the best possible person that we can be. So having these physical processes will allow us to estimate their age, and I am curious to continue through this. So like I said, we will do that another day. Here is a quick image. I'll put a screenshot up somewhere, but these are all of the plates that we have on our planet. You know, the North American plate, South America, Nazca, Juan de Fuca, Pacific, Arabian, African, Indian, Australian, Philippine, Antarctic, and Eurasian. I'm privileged to have been one of the first humans to step foot on another celestial body when Neil Armstrong and I landed on the moon in 1969. I continue to have a sense of wonder about what it is out there, just as I did when I was young. There is still so much to learn about our universe, and Universal will help inspire us, the people who have that fascination with the planets, the law of attraction, and really putting this information into action. So hopefully you can hear me. My mic is just on my tower for the desktop. If you're watching this right now, much appreciation. You're about to learn something that may be a new concept to you. But looking at this chart right now, what can we see? We're on the daily. The British pound paired with the Australian dollar as the quote currency. So if we were to identify some areas of significance on this chart, the first thing that comes to mind for me is this. So we can go ahead, we can extend this very easily. We can see that we had some trading activity up towards that whole 1.715 level recently. Now, looking at all of this slow and steady consolidation, creating some highs, some lows, and of course some bullish and bearish candlesticks, you already know. We can see here by looking towards the weekly that this zone, which in this case is acting as supply, pushing price to the downside, looking for more demand because there's an overabundance of sellers, of people who are looking to get rid of their British pound investments. But if we check out the monthly chart, we can see here that really this bearish candlestick that we had in June could indicate that maybe we see lower lows. But remember, myself personally, I am bullish on the British pound when we're looking at the GBP USD. But with the Australian economy, I would have to do some more research on the fundamental side of things. So if we're going to look at this from a technical analysis standpoint, we can of course consider our range and Renko charts. We can notice some areas that are still significant. And of course, looking at where price is right now, this is one area that's relevant. And you can see how easily it can become to just identify these levels. If we were to go ahead and add on a Fibonacci retracement, one way we could do it is from the very, very lows up to our highest highs. We can see that when we were trading at this whole 1.75 area, that is in line with the 61.8. Now, seeing this, I would imagine the 78.6 is around here if I had to put a guess on it. We will go ahead, we'll enable that briefly, make it white so that we can see it. So it is a little bit lower. Our 78.6 is a little bit lower, not too significant. We're going to hide that once again, because if you don't understand something, you should not trade it, right? This is something, when it comes to charting, to be very, very clear. Having the right expectations is going to allow us to progress along the journey at a much more significant pace than if we are wasting time. So when it comes to the 3 questions that you can ask me each and every single week, I would recommend as a student that you start trading diligently. Do your analysis at a time where it's convenient. For me, that's generally on a Saturday, maybe a Sunday, depending how I'm feeling. That is more of a spiritual day, however. And looking at just these confirmations that we have on the chart, my personal bias is still to see some more upside movement. Now, we have to remember there is British pound monetary policy coming up. Looking at the hourly and seeing on an intraday perspective what is happening. This is really a specialty with our Forex Investors Alliance, because we help you see and identify the patterns in the market, potential manipulation, and even something just like this. I mean, let's do a little bit of counting, shall we? We have our high point. Just go back real quick and double check. So looking at this high, we can see that for the last few months, at least for all of 2017 so far, even into the end of 2016, we have not traded up at this level before. We can see that we were progressing up to it very nicely. We can notice, if we wanted to count from just what happened in 2017, first thing that we're going to identify here is this demand gap. We can see it was filled very, very quickly. We can identify market pattern right here, sucked us right back down to this area of demand that we've identified, our gray zone. Looking forward, now this is our peak formation low. And what I mean by this is the lowest point that we have on the intraday levels. Looking at the 2017 year, we can see here that we did push away from that very, very quickly. We had a little bit of consolidation happening in here. A little bit more consolidation happening in here. And this was around the time where the early election was called. So we can see that investors are favoring the future of the British economy in this example. Now, this is what happened in here, all of this. Now, I would trade this if I were in a sell position from around the high point, simply because this is an opportunity for over 250 pips, and really you'd have to be patient because it's hours and hours and hours. But then of course we continue with the uptrend. So coming around to the middle of the year, looking at May, we do have our high point formed. We have some consolidation happening all in here, creating, to me, really, I mean, I'm not going to identify everything that I see because the chart could get a little bit creative, if you know what I mean. But what happened right in here most recently, even looking at from the end of June up until where we are right now, one of the first things that pops up in my mind is identifying this gap in price. And we can see we traded, continued to trade, creating those higher lows, higher highs, coming up towards the bottom of our area of supply. Whole psychological factor happening, and we swoop down into our lower limits. So if we wanted to see what could happen next, looking at just the daily chart and seeing how we finished, noticing how this candlestick printed bullish, filled it up, I would be confident expecting price to rise up to at least the 166,200 level. So potential for about 230 pips if you were to just, enter a buy as soon as market opened and price stayed exactly where it is, with a stop loss of over 123 pips if you are looking to place it at the low of the daily candle. 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. I wouldn't trade that specifically, but it's helping us create a bias. This is the purpose. We'll look at one more chart. US dollar Canadian. Do I trade using the linear regression channel? I do not use the linear regression channel. I see no purpose in trading things I don't understand. You know what I mean? US dollar Canadian. We're hitting our buyer interest level, but really looking at this chart, I'm gonna want to say buyer's interest is still lower. 124 looks like a good potential zone. We've already done some analysis. There's no need to redo it at this phase, but we can notice on the weekly here, we filled in that space between our 200 EMA and where price is currently. We do have an area of demand. We're going to clean this chart up a little bit. Take off our text note. Can remove our oval since we have surpassed it. And really, we'll still keep her on there just because I do anticipate price to push into that. Monthly, a lot of bearish momentum happening here these last 3 months. We can even look towards last year, February, March, April, very bearish. We do have this high point. We could be looking at a cleaner chart. So let's see which one works best, shall we? NFP back testing right here. So looking at this, I mean, we're sitting in a good place right now. We've hit that 125 psychological level. And when it comes down to it, I mean, that space that we have from the 200 EMA, still significant. I'm curious to look at the Euro US dollar because I know we achieved our target. We've actually blown through it by 160 pips. So we were looking for buys. I was in a position on this pair last week at 115.14. Stop loss. We did get stopped out, unfortunately. We will go ahead and identify just what happened real quick. 114.94. So I did have a 20 pip stop loss on this trade. My target was the 117 level, so we came within 18 pips of hitting that high, that target I was looking for from my entry, with that 20 pip stop loss potential for 160 to 180 pip reward depending on when I took profit if I didn't get stopped out. But that's what happens. This was the ECB. So we did have the European Central Bank speaking with the minimum bid rate. Now, this candlestick right here, this was a big bullish indicator for me. And if I were trading at the station at this time, could have hopped in. We did have mobile data, but I was not wanting to demo this trade necessarily after my original position was stopped out. So, hey, it's part of the game. Losses are a natural part of the process, and it really just comes back to learning. So I'm not quite certain if I'd like to continue analyzing charts at this point tonight, because I do have a few things to attend to. We can see here that we were looking at a gap from the beginning, or really at the beginning of the 2015 year, up towards that 1.2 psychological level. So we can identify with a price level just so that we can relate and easily see it. It's a little bit lower, but you get the idea of where I'm looking towards personally. This is a daily. You can see that momentum once more on the monthly. Last week we did have our push above the 200 EMA right into our 38.2 level, surpassed that by about 50 pips, and really there's no need anymore for these psychological high price points, so we'll take those off the chart at this time. Continue to analyze here, and I mean, I'm still very confident on the bullish bias for the Euro US dollar. Take a look at the range chart, however, and we might, if this closed like this, I would definitely expect some bearish retracement to start next week, even down to the 115 level. I mean, 150 pip target minimum for a 30 pip reward is what I would be looking at if I were to start trading this pair, depending on how the market opens. So what do you know? It is a new hourly candle. If the market were open, we're going to look at dollar index really quick. Still getting bearish signals on that. Look at gold for the fun of it. Still looking towards the upside in my opinion. But we do have the cryptocurrency market to consider now. So we can see, I mean, even if we were to just put on a new clean chart. That we have essentially created this whole range right now. But noticing we are getting those higher lows, higher highs. I mean, gold is uptrending at this time in my opinion, but we could see that bearish movement. It's just part of the game. Need to consider absolutely everything when it comes to starting to trade. And remember, make sure that you go ahead, join our community really easily. It's right there, forexcommunity.online. I appreciate your time, and as I mentioned, if you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment so that I can put my consideration towards that. And I do thank you for your patience. These videos are going to be even more effective. Going to be releasing the upcoming trading tips series. So if there's a video, a burning question that you have about the financial markets or becoming a successful and consistent trader, make sure that you get that question answered. Sending peace and love to you. I'm Zachary Hogan.